You will never heal until you understand this about your mother. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung, welcome to Spiritual Wisdom. Today's message is not just about healing, it's about awakening. Many of us carry invisible wounds, passed down from our mothers not through blame, but through patterns we were too young to understand. This video will uncover the hidden truth that might be holding you back, and why true healing begins when you stop looking outward and start looking within. If this resonates with you, let us know in the comments. Have you ever realized your deepest pain wasn't about your mother, but about the shadow she left behind in your mind? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're ready to break generational cycles and step into your power. 1. The real wound is internalized, not external. It's not your mother who still controls your life. It's the inner version of her that your unconscious holds on to. This isn't about the physical presence of your mother, nor even her actions today. It's about the internalized image you built as a child, shaped by unmet needs, silent expectations, and emotional imprints too subtle to name. Carl Jung called this the mother complex, an unconscious archetype that lodges itself deep within, quietly influencing your behaviors, emotions, and relationships. You may believe you're responding to the present moment, but in truth, you are often reacting to a shadow from the past. You are not battling your actual mother. You are entangled in a war against the idea of her that lives in your psyche. That idea isn't static. It changes from sometimes showing up as shame when you assert yourself, guilt when you set boundaries, or fear when you try to love. You keep waiting for her to change, to validate you, to see you fully, but healing does not come from her transformation. Healing begins the moment you turn inward and ask, what has my mind done with her? That question marks the beginning of your spiritual awakening, a shift from blaming the outer world to claiming your inner freedom. The most painful truth is also the most freeing. The wound is no longer outside, it's within. It lives in your nervous system, in the way you brace yourself during conflict, in the way you chase approval or avoid rejection. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that the past is not just what happened, it's how we still carry it. The child within you learned to survive by adapting to your mother's presence or absence. But those survival patterns are not meant to be your lifelong identity. What if your emotional instability in adulthood isn't a character flaw, but a scar from early emotional hunger? What if your need to please, your fear of confrontation, your perfectionism, or your avoidance are echoes of a childhood where safety depended on attunement to your mother's moods? These patterns become automatic until you bring awareness to them. And awareness is the first step toward liberation. You are not broken, you're conditioned. And what was learned can be unlearned. Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The mother complex is precisely this, a hidden script running your inner world. It makes you crave love in unhealthy places. It confuses self-worth with performance. It keeps you stuck in cycles that feel inevitable, but they're not. They are reflections of a story you didn't choose, but can now rewrite. This is where the power of spiritual wisdom comes in, not to judge or deny your pain, but to help you integrate it. To heal is not to erase your history. It is to reclaim your authority over it. Your mother's voice may echo in your inner dialogue, but it doesn't have to be the narrator of your life. Her image may still haunt your choices, but it doesn't have to define your path. Healing is the quiet, persistent work of facing the mother inside you, offering her compassion, and choosing not to obey her shadows. You may never receive the apology, the love, or the acknowledgement you hoped for, but you can give yourself what she could not. And that, ultimately, is what sets you free. Have you ever taken time to explore the image of your mother that lives in your mind? Not the real person, but the shadow she left behind. If you've already started this healing journey, share your experience in the comments to inspire others. If not, comment, "I'm ready to look within," so we can begin this deep inner work together. 2. Your pain isn't just emotional. It's behavioral and repetitive. Your pain isn't just emotional, it's behavioral and far more repetitive than you realize. The wounds from your childhood don't stay in the past. They quietly become patterns, cycles, and reflexes. You're not just feeling sadness, you're reliving an emotional script written in your earliest years. This is what Carl Jung called the mother complex, a psychological imprint so deep that it becomes your default way of relating to the world. You react, withdraw, crave approval, or sabotage relationships not because you're broken, but because your nervous system memorized these dynamics as normal. As a child, when your emotional needs weren't met, when love came with conditions or affection was unpredictable, your mind did something to protect you. It adapted. You learned how to be silent, how to become useful, how to be pleasing. But in doing so, you also learned how to betray yourself. You abandoned your truth in order to secure connection. And now, as an adult, you still play out that script. You enter relationships and unconsciously recreate the same emotional landscape you once tried to survive when filled with rejection, distance, or emotional hunger. The loop continues. You fear abandonment, so you cling. You crave safety, so you overperform. You don't trust love, so you test it, sabotage it, or push it away. This isn't just a behavioral habit. It's the invisible architecture of your inner world, built long ago through the lens of your mother's love or absence. Carl Jung taught that what remains unconscious will rule your life. The image of the mother doesn't disappear when you grow up. It lingers in your psyche, shaping how you see yourself, how you treat others, and what kind of love you think you deserve. Take the story of Tara, a high-achieving woman who always felt like she was one misstep away from being unworthy. Despite her success, she constantly felt like she needed to prove herself. In love, she gave too much, too fast, and was devastated when others pulled away. Through inner work, she realized she wasn't just trying to be loved. She was reenacting a silent promise she made to her mother's absence. If I'm perfect, you'll stay. Tara wasn't chasing men. She was chasing the mother who never truly saw her. Her relationships were echoes of an origin she never questioned. That's how deep the mother complex runs. Healing doesn't begin with blaming your mother. It begins with noticing your own patterns and asking deeper questions. Why do I shrink when I feel vulnerable? Why do I attract emotionally unavailable people? Why does love feel like a test? These are not personality flaws. They are protective strategies you develop to survive early emotional neglect. To break free, you must begin to reparent yourself. Speak the words your inner child longed to hear. You are enough. You don't have to prove your worth. Offer yourself the safety you never received. Spiritual wisdom is not about bypassing pain with positivity. It's about facing the unconscious with fierce honesty. Carl Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your healing doesn't lie in the past. It lies in your willingness to stop reliving it. When you begin to see your reactions as reflections of an internal wound, not present reality, you take back your power. And from that place of awareness, you don't just heal, you evolve. Have you noticed yourself repeating the same painful patterns in relationships? If so, comment, "I will break the cycle," below to show your commitment to healing the unconscious loop and stepping into freedom. 3. Invisible loyalty keeps you stuck. There is a silent contract many carry deep within, an invisible loyalty that binds you to your mother's pain. You don't choose it consciously, but it shapes your decisions, your relationships, even your happiness. You dim your light, not because you lack the power to shine, but because some part of you believes that surpassing your mother's suffering would mean betraying her. So, you self-sabotage. You hold back. You stay small, not out of weakness, but out of love that has been distorted by guilt. But this is not love. This is emotional imprisonment. The truth is, honoring your mother does not mean reenacting her wounds. It means transforming them. It means becoming the version of yourself that was never possible in her world, and by doing so, rewriting the story for both of you. When you break the cycle, you don't abandon her. You liberate her. You release both of your spirits from a legacy of inherited pain. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Many of us fear that healing will create separation, that growing beyond our mother's pain will sever the bond. But ask yourself, what kind of love demands you stay broken? What kind of connection requires the rejection of your own joy, your own voice, your own soul? Spiritual awakening begins when you dare to question these emotional contracts. It begins when you realize that your purpose is not to inherit wounds, but to end them. You are not here to relive a script written before you were born. You are here to become the author of a new legacy, one rooted not in suffering, but in freedom. Imagine a woman who never allowed herself to be fully happy. Every time life offered her a breakthrough, an opportunity, a loving relationship, a moment of joy, she felt a strange pull back into struggle. It wasn't until years later that she understood. Deep inside, she felt it would be unfair to live the life her mother never had. That's how powerful these unconscious bonds can be. But when she chose to heal, when she finally told herself, "I honor my mother by healing what she couldn't," her entire life changed. Her energy shifted. Her spirit awakened. The wound you carry is not just yours, it is ancestral. And yet, the power to heal it is uniquely yours. To step beyond the limits your mother knew is not betrayal, it is evolution. And the only way out of the pattern is through conscious choice. Healing becomes the act of love that redefines loyalty, not as shared suffering, but as spiritual freedom. You don't need to stay stuck in pain to prove your love. Your healing is not abandonment. It is a remembrance. It is honoring your lineage by refusing to carry what was never yours to bear. This is the path of spiritual awakening, the sacred moment when you choose to live fully, not in spite of your mother's pain, but because you were born to transform it. Comment below. I will break the cycle. If you're ready to honor your mother by healing, not by repeating her pain, let this be the moment you choose freedom over invisible loyalty. 4. You must break the internalized voice. The most damaging part of your relationship with your mother isn't always what she said or did. It's the voice you internalized. This voice doesn't just echo from childhood. It becomes a constant whisper in your adult mind, telling you that you're not enough, that your feelings are too much, and that your worth depends on how well you perform for others. It's subtle, yet powerful. This voice isn't your truth. It's a distorted reflection of a mother archetype that settled into your unconscious, shaped by unmet emotional needs, societal conditioning, and generational pain. Carl Jung called this the negative mother complex, a psychological imprint that shapes how we treat ourselves, especially in moments of vulnerability. This inner mother doesn't nurture you. She controls you. She's the one who criticizes your softness, silences your anger, and shames your need for rest or love. Her standards are impossible, her praise conditional, and her silence loud. You may think this harshness is your own voice, but it's not. It's a psychic inheritance, a pattern passed down through generations of women who were told they had to earn love by being useful, pleasing, or invisible. And until you break this voice, you will live in her shadow, performing for approval that never truly satisfies. The voice will say, "You're lazy when you rest, dramatic when you cry, selfish when you assert a boundary." But here's the truth. That voice is not wisdom. It's a wound. Spiritual wisdom begins when you pause and ask, whose voice is this? True awakening isn't just about meditation or transcendence. It's about reclaiming your mind from inherited shame. Every time you soften your tone with yourself, every time you allow yourself to feel without judgment, you are breaking a generational curse. This is not rebellion, it's liberation. The most sacred work you can do is to mother yourself in a way your inner child never received, replacing harshness with compassion, replacing pressure with presence, replacing criticism with care. Healing doesn't come through blame, it comes through awareness. The voice can't be silenced with anger, only understood through compassion. You must become the loving parent to the child within you. Because until you do, your relationships, your creativity, your self-worth will always be at the mercy of a voice that was never yours to begin with. And every time you catch that voice and choose gentleness instead, you rewire your nervous system. You reclaim your power. You start to walk in your own rhythm, not one imposed by fear. You are not broken. You are becoming. And as you rewrite your inner dialogue, you not only heal your own story, you become the one who breaks the chain for those who come after you. This is the quiet revolution. This is spiritual wisdom in action. If you're ready to break free from the inner voice that keeps you small, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another insight that supports your healing. Comment below, "I am reclaiming my inner voice," to affirm your journey towards self-compassion and true freedom. 5. You reenact abandonment through emotional self-neglect. You learn to disappear before you even knew you had the right to exist. Long before you could name your emotions, you were already silencing them. This wasn't a conscious choice. It was a survival instinct. Somewhere along the way, you stopped expecting tenderness. You stopped crying out when it hurt. You began to treat yourself the same way the world once did, with quiet dismissal. You became your own emotional abandoner, reenacting the very pain you once hoped to escape. Carl Jung called this the mother complex, not a reflection of your mother as a person, but of the inner structure her presence, or absence, built within you. When love was earned through achievement, you became a perfectionist. When your voice was unwelcome, you became quiet. When your emotions were inconvenient, you buried them. You thought you were moving forward, but really, you were just repeating the pattern in new costumes, pleasing, performing, overextending, collapsing. You keep giving, even when you're empty. You apologize for needing rest. You pride yourself on not needing help. But behind it all is a child who never learned to feel safe within their own skin. You think being strong means never breaking. But real strength begins when you stop abandoning yourself. That's where healing starts, not when someone finally shows up for you, but when you finally do. You can't wait for someone to give you the love you never received. Healing isn't a reward that someone else can hand you. It's a reclamation, a return. You become your own internal mother when you say, "I see your pain, and I will no longer look away." You choose yourself every time you rest when your body aches, when you speak even though your voice shakes, when you stop pushing and start listening. That is sacred. That is spiritual wisdom. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The mother you carry inside her voice, her rules, her silence still lives within you. And as long as she remains unseen, you will keep mistaking her ghost for your own reflection. But the moment you recognize the shadow, you open the door to freedom. You don't destroy the past. You transform your relationship to it. There was once a woman who gave everything to everyone. At work, she was reliable. At home, she was needed. She was always available, always composed. But inside, she was tired of holding it together, of pretending she was fine. One day, her therapist asked, "Why are you so afraid to take up space?" And she realized she had never been taught how. She had learned to be valuable, but not vulnerable. That was the day she began to mother herself. Not with grand gestures, but with small acts of care. Going to bed early, saying no without guilt, crying without shame. And in doing so, she began to heal. You may not realize it, but your healing has already begun. Every time you choose yourself, even in the smallest way, you rewrite the story. You're not broken. You're remembering who you were before the world told you to forget. And that, according to Carl Jung, is how we truly become whole. If you're ready to stop abandoning yourself and start showing up with love, type in the comments, "I choose to care for my inner child." And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a moment of healing and transformation. 6. True healing is a personal revolution. Healing is not beautiful. It's not a calm journey lined with candles and quiet reflections. It's a storm. It's chaos in the body and silence in the soul. It's waking up every day and choosing, sometimes through tears, to stay present with your pain instead of running from it. It's choosing yourself, not once, but again and again in the smallest, most ordinary moments, like saying no when your body aches, like resting without guilt, like looking in the mirror and speaking gently to yourself when every voice inside wants to scream. These are not trivial acts. They are sacred rebellions. Because every time you choose love over shame, truth over silence, rest over burnout, you are rewiring something deep inside that was programmed by generations before you. We grow up thinking we need to be strong, to hold everything together, to make others comfortable, even if it means betraying ourselves. And most of us learned this from the very beginning, from the people who raised us, especially our mothers. Carl Jung reminds us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The mother is not just a person. She becomes an internal voice, an archetype that whispers in the background of our lives, often shaping our emotional patterns without us even realizing. And it's not always her literal actions that hurt us. It's the story we created about ourselves in response to her presence or her absence. That's why true healing demands more than just insight. It demands transformation. It's not just about understanding your pain. It's about unlearning the loyalty to your wounds. It's about spiritual awakening, a deep inner shift that breaks the invisible contracts you signed as a child, the ones that said you had to earn love, stay small, or be perfect to be safe. When you start making different choices, when you listen to your body, protect your energy, and embrace your inner child, you're not just helping yourself. You're healing the echoes of your lineage, and that's why it's so hard. Because you're carrying the emotional weight, not just of your life, but of your bloodline. You're breaking patterns your mother never had the chance to break. You're feeling feelings your grandmother wasn't allowed to feel. You're finding your voice in places where generations were taught to stay silent. And sometimes, that responsibility feels unbearable. But hear this, you're not broken. You're breaking through. Spiritual awakening isn't about perfection or reaching some enlightened state. It's about remembering that you were whole before the world told you otherwise. Remembering that your worth was never tied to your trauma. And from that remembering, you begin to build a new life, not from fear, but from truth. This is the revolution. Quiet, internal, relentless. Every soft boundary, every moment of stillness, every act of self-respect, it all matters. It's not easy, but it is sacred. Stay connected with our community of healing and growth by subscribing to our channel. Here, we explore the raw truth of inner transformation and the power of choosing yourself, moment by moment. You are worthy of peace, joy, and wholeness because healing is your personal revolution. 7. You are the savior you've been waiting for. No one is coming to save you. And while that may feel harsh at first, it is one of the most liberating truths you'll ever face. Because the one you've been waiting for, the one who truly understands your wounds, who has lived through your silence, your longing, your rage, is you. When you stop repeating the emotional patterns that broke you and begin to love and rebuild yourself, something powerful happens. You don't just heal. You ignite a quiet inner revolution that shifts the entire trajectory of your life. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom. Healing doesn't begin when others change. It begins when you reclaim the power you once gave away. Carl Jung said, "What you do not make conscious will manifest as fate." And most of what lives in our unconscious began in childhood. The wounds we carry from our earliest attachments, especially with our mother, don't simply disappear as we grow older. They hide in the choices we make, the partners we chase, the emotional cycles we relive. These patterns aren't fate. They're the result of unexamined pain playing itself out over and over until we become conscious enough to choose differently. You've probably waited for someone to rescue you, to love you in a way that feels like home. But that longing isn't really for another person. It's for the parts of yourself you abandoned just to survive. The child in you who needed to be held. The teenager who had to silence their truth to keep the peace. The adult who pretends they're okay while their soul quietly aches for more. When you stop seeking rescue from the outside and start turning inward, you begin to rebuild yourself from truth, not trauma. This path isn't easy. It requires confronting the internalized mother, an archetype that lives inside you long after the real one has left the room. It's not about blame. It's about understanding how deeply her voice became your own. Her fears became your limits. Her wounds shaped your responses. Healing the mother's wound isn't about changing her. It's about reclaiming yourself from her shadow. This is where the real spiritual awakening begins. When you stop fighting an external figure and begin dissolving the inner one who keeps you stuck. And yes, you will feel lonely. Healing often begins in isolation. But don't confuse solitude with abandonment. This space is where transformation takes root. It's where you meet the parts of yourself that were hidden, exiled, forgotten. It's where you learn to mother yourself with compassion, patience, and power. And in doing so, you break the cycle. You stop handing your life over to unconscious pain and start living in conscious truth. You are not broken. You are buried under layers of survival. And every time you choose to show up for yourself instead of waiting to be saved, you uncover more of your light. You are the savior you've been waiting for. Not because you're perfect, but because you're finally willing to become whole. To affirm your awakening, declare it now. Comment below, "I am my own savior," to honor your healing journey and inspire others to rise into their power. If this message speaks to your soul, like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another moment of spiritual wisdom. Healing begins the moment we stop blaming and start understanding. As Carl Jung reminded us, the mother isn't just a person. She's an archetype deeply embedded in the unconscious. Until we make peace with that inner image, the past continues to shape our present. True freedom comes not from rewriting history, but from rewriting the meaning it holds within us. If this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos filled with deeper insight and healing. Your journey matters, and we're honored to walk it with you. Signs that someone close to you secretly hates you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt an unspoken tension around someone who claims to care about you, yet something deep inside tells you otherwise? Sometimes, what we call vibes are actually powerful signals from the unconscious, warning us about hidden resentment or jealousy. In today's video on Spiritual Wisdom, we'll uncover the subtle but powerful signs that someone close to you may secretly harbor hate, as revealed through the lens of Carl Jung's deep psychological insights. These signs aren't just about them. They're also a mirror for your own growth, boundaries, and emotional awareness. As you listen, ask yourself, have I ignored my intuition in the name of harmony? Comment below if you've ever sensed hidden hostility in a relationship, and let's open up the conversation on how to protect your peace while staying spiritually grounded. Signs 1. Contempt, disguised as irony. Have you ever laughed at a joke that left a sting in your chest, only to hear, "Relax, I'm just kidding"? Sometimes, what's framed as humor is not harmless at all. It's a mask for something darker. As Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But sometimes, what irritates others about you reveals their unhealed parts. This is where spiritual wisdom meets psychological insight and where the truth begins to surface. Contempt, disguised as irony, is one of the most common yet subtle signs of hidden hatred. When someone close to you frequently uses sarcasm or cutting remarks, pay attention not just to their words, but to the feeling they leave behind. Do you walk away from conversations feeling smaller, confused, or emotionally bruised? If so, you're not being too sensitive. What you're sensing may be an energy of suppressed contempt. These seemingly playful comments often come wrapped in smiles or laughs, making it harder to call them out. They may say things like, "You're really going to wear that?" Or, "I guess you finally finished something for once," followed by a chuckle. But that laugh doesn't erase the sting of the words. It disguises the hostility behind them. And when you try to confront it, the response is often dismissive. "Come on, it's just a joke." But real humor uplifts. It connects. It does not erode your self-worth. Carl Jung taught that such repeated use of irony and sarcasm is a projection of the shadow, the unconscious part of the psyche where we bury traits we don't want to face within ourselves. When someone can't own their own envy, insecurity, or inadequacy, they often disown these parts and throw them onto others through subtle attacks. That's why their sarcasm may come out strongest when you're doing well, stepping into your power, or shining confidently. What you're witnessing is not just a personality quirk, it's shadow projection in motion. This is where spiritual wisdom offers deeper clarity. The spiritual path invites us to trust our intuition, to read energy, and to discern truth that may not be spoken aloud. If your soul feels uneasy in someone's presence, even if they speak sweetly or act warm, it's because energy never lies. Spiritual awakening sharpens this sensitivity. As you evolve, your nervous system becomes a compass, alerting you to the presence of hidden danger, emotional manipulation, or concealed resentment. It's also important to recognize that the people who hurt us with sarcasm are often not fully aware of their behavior. They may be emotionally immature, carrying wounds of their own, or they may lack the self-awareness to realize how their words affect others. That doesn't mean you must accept their behavior. It means you can choose to see it for what it is and protect your peace accordingly. The moment you stop laughing along with jokes that hurt you, you reclaim your power. You no longer agree to be the target of someone else's unresolved pain. And in doing so, you embody a deeper form of spiritual wisdom. The courage to see the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and the grace to walk away from what dishonors your spirit. So listen, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. Your discomfort is a message. Your unease is information. And your awareness is your protection. Have you ever felt the sting of a joke that didn't feel funny? If you've experienced sarcasm that left you questioning someone's true intentions, share your story in the comments. Your voice might help someone else find clarity. And if this message resonates with you, type, "I trust my intuition," to affirm your awareness and healing journey. Signs 2. Hidden sabotage. They smile when you win, clap when you rise, and say all the right words, but deep down, their energy feels off. You can't quite explain it, but something inside you senses friction beneath the surface. At first, it looks like innocent forgetfulness. Maybe they forgot to tell you about that job opening you would have been perfect for. Maybe they didn't realize their advice would push you in the wrong direction. But when it happens again, and then again, always, right when it matters most, you begin to see the pattern. These aren't accidents. These are subtle sabotages. Carl Jung taught that when people refuse to acknowledge their own failures or insecurities, they begin to project them outward. What they cannot face within themselves, they unconsciously act out toward others, especially those who reflect back what they secretly long for. That's why someone close to you may undermine your growth while claiming to support it. Their shadow, the hidden, denied self, is at work behind the scenes. And the closer they are to you, the easier it is for their actions to hide behind the mask of care. This shadow-driven sabotage can appear in many forms: discouraging words disguised as concern, hesitation that delays your progress, or advice that seems supportive but leads you away from your goals. They may not even be aware they're doing it, but your intuition is. Deep inside, you feel the misalignment. You sense the subtle envy in their tone. You feel the shift when you share good news and their face falls, just for a moment. You might tell yourself you're overreacting, that you should give them the benefit of the doubt. And while compassion is noble, Carl Jung reminds us that until a person makes the unconscious conscious, it will direct their life and they will call it fate. In this case, it may direct your life too if you let it. Modern life is full of such dynamics. Think of the artist whose closest friend never shares their work or praises their talent publicly, but quietly urges them to be realistic. Or the entrepreneur whose sibling constantly warns them about risk, but celebrates loudly when others succeed. These are not loud haters. These are people trapped in quiet comparison, whose inner wounds are triggered by your freedom. But you don't owe anyone your dimming. You are not responsible for making yourself smaller, so someone else can feel safe. The lesson here is not to become paranoid, but to become aware. Awareness is the first act of spiritual self-defense. When you understand the hidden psychology behind sabotage, you begin to protect your peace without guilt. Jung's insights remind us that transformation begins when we name the pattern, claim our space, and refuse to internalize projections that do not belong to us. Not every smile is sincere. Not every friend wants to see you free. And sometimes, the greatest wisdom lies in walking away quietly while still holding love in your heart and boundaries in your hands. If this message helped you recognize the hidden sabotage in your life, comment below. I trust my path to affirm your clarity and strength. And if you're ready to protect your peace and stay focused on your growth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next video on spiritual awakening and self-mastery. Signs. 3. Silent competition. Every time you achieve something meaningful, they don't celebrate you, they compete. They don't say it out loud, but their actions speak volumes. Maybe they instantly change the subject to their own success. Maybe they throw in a sarcastic, "must be nice," or offer a compliment that feels more like a subtle jab. This isn't just random behavior, it's silent competition, one of the most common forms of hidden resentment. When someone close to you constantly tries to outshine you, it's not because they dislike your success, it's because it reminds them of what they haven't yet achieved. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." These people aren't aware they're doing this. They're not intentionally trying to bring you down. But unconsciously, your growth threatens their sense of self. When they haven't done the inner work to feel secure, your progress activates their insecurity. They can't be happy for you because they're too busy comparing themselves to you. Instead of admiring your evolution, they treat it like a scoreboard. This is the trap of ego, and it's where your spiritual awakening becomes your compass. You begin to see clearly what you once overlooked. You start noticing the shift in their tone when you speak about something you're proud of. You feel the tension that rises when you speak with confidence or joy. You realize that they don't feel safe when you shine because your light exposes their shadows, and their passive competition is their way of trying to dim it. But here's what they don't understand. Your path isn't a race. There is no finish line in spiritual growth. The only real journey is within. And when someone treats your success like a threat, what they're really showing you is their fear of being left behind. Deep down, they worry that your evolution will create distance. Instead of rising with you, they choose to resist you. This is why spiritual wisdom teaches us not to match energy, but to maintain alignment. You don't need to argue, prove yourself, or shrink just to make them comfortable. Instead, you protect your peace. You keep growing. You keep rising. Because the ones who truly love you will never compete with you. They will celebrate you. They won't feel smaller in your light. They'll feel inspired to find their own. And when you begin to feel these subtle shifts, those quiet attempts to redirect the spotlight, those conversations that suddenly become about them instead of you pay attention, it's not always hatred in the loudest voices. Sometimes it hides behind silence, behind comparison, behind forced applause. The more you awaken, the more clearly you'll see the difference between real support and concealed resentment. And that clarity, though painful, is the beginning of emotional freedom. If this message resonates with your spirit, declare it with faith. I release silent competition. I rise with grace and confidence. Signs 4. Superficial support. They seem supportive on the surface. They might say the right words, offer polite applause when you achieve something, or even compliment your success in front of others. But when you look into their eyes, when you reach for emotional connection during the moments that truly matter, your victories, your losses, your quiet struggles, they are not there. Their presence is hollow. Their words feel rehearsed, and their support, though visible, lacks soul. This subtle absence isn't accidental. Carl Jung would describe it as emotional detachment rooted in ego dissociation, when a person becomes so cut off from their own inner world that they can no longer authentically connect with yours. This behavior becomes especially clear during major life moments. You might share something deeply meaningful, expecting warmth or shared excitement, only to be met with a cold nod, a quick subject change, or a flat, "That's great." Their encouragement feels forced, even mechanical. And though they never openly insult or oppose you, There's something in the way they withhold true joy for your wins or quiet empathy for your pain that creates a deep spiritual dissonance. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that energy doesn't lie, even if words can. And what you're picking up on is real. The tension between their mask and their true feelings. These people often hide behind the illusion of being supportive, but inside, they may harbor resentment, envy, or discomfort with your growth. Their ego, fragmented and afraid of being overshadowed, disconnects from any real emotional vulnerability. Jung believed that what is repressed in the psyche eventually leaks out in indirect ways. In this case, that leakage shows up as cold smiles, shallow praise, and convenient disappearances when you need them the most. It's a betrayal not of action, but of absence, a silence that screams louder than words ever could. And if you've experienced this, you've likely questioned yourself, wondered if you were too sensitive, if you expected too much. But this is where your spiritual awakening begins, because as your awareness expands, your soul becomes sharper at sensing emotional truth. You begin to notice the small hesitations, the energetic withdrawal, the moments when your joy is met with tight-lipped politeness rather than celebration. Your spirit knows the difference between genuine presence and disguised detachment. Spiritual wisdom urges you not to ignore this knowing. The gap between someone's words and their energy is not something to dismiss, it's something to trust. When you feel unseen or unsupported by those who claim to care, it's often because their inner conflict is louder than their love. And you must choose not to internalize their distance as your fault. You're not difficult for needing depth. You're not ungrateful for noticing the absence behind their applause. You're simply waking up. True support is never cold. Real presence is never silent when your soul cries or sings. And when someone close to you cannot offer that presence, despite all their smiles and surface gestures, they're revealing a truth that only your spirit can decode. So listen not to their words, but to their energy. Because in that space, between what's said and what's felt, your spiritual wisdom is speaking loud and clear. If this message resonated with your soul, take a moment to reflect and affirm your truth. Comment below. I deserve real connection, not empty support. Let this be a declaration that you're ready to surround yourself with people who show up with presence, not pretense. Signs 5. Control disguised as caring. Sometimes the most manipulative form of control doesn't come from an obvious enemy, but from someone who claims to care. They don't raise their voice. They don't attack directly. Instead, they offer advice that chips away at your confidence. You walk away from the conversation not feeling supported, but smaller, unsure, hesitant. Carl Jung, a pioneer of modern psychology, explained that people who haven't dealt with their inner chaos often try to control the world outside of them. What they can't organize internally, they attempt to manage externally through you. These individuals often cloak their fear as concern. Their words sound soft, but the impact is sharp. They might say things like, "I just want what's best for you," or "I'm not sure you're ready for that kind of responsibility." But if you listen closely, you'll notice the pattern. Their advice doesn't empower, it disarms. What they're really saying is, don't grow, don't change, stay where I'm comfortable seeing you. Jung believed that the shadow self, those rejected or hidden parts of our psyche, can unconsciously drive our behavior. When someone secretly resents your freedom, your confidence, or your success, their shadow might show up wrapped in concern. This is where spiritual wisdom comes in. True care doesn't try to shrink you. It expands you. It walks beside your growth, even when it doesn't fully understand it. But hidden hostility masked as kindness keeps you second-guessing yourself. The worst part is how subtle it is. You might think you're the problem for being too sensitive or too ambitious. But the real issue is that you're becoming too free for someone who's still trapped in their own unresolved fear. Mia, a designer in her 30s, experienced this firsthand. Her cousin, who had always acted like a mentor, constantly gave her advice about playing it safe. Don't leave your job. Don't go after that risky opportunity. Don't aim too high. At first, Mia took it as love. But the more she followed her cousin's advice, the more she felt disconnected from her own dreams. Eventually, she realized her cousin wasn't protecting her. She was projecting her own fears onto her. The concern was actually a reflection of unhealed wounds that Mia had unknowingly absorbed. Carl Jung taught that what remains unconscious will control your life, and you'll call it fate. If someone close to you constantly undermines you under the guise of support, it's time to pause. Is their help making you stronger or more doubtful? Are you inspired by them, or are you exhausted trying to earn their approval? There's a difference between constructive feedback and emotional sabotage. The former builds you. The latter binds you. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who's afraid of your growth. Their fear is not your burden. Their instability is not your responsibility to fix. Protect your peace. Reclaim your clarity. And remember, love never needs to disguise itself. Real support lets you fly, even if it means letting you go. If this message opened your eyes, stay connected by subscribing to our channel. Here, we uncover spiritual wisdom to help you set healthy boundaries and reclaim your peace. Remember, you are not here to be controlled. You are here to grow, to choose, and to rise in the truth of who you are. Signs 6. Gossip and criticism. They don't confront you. Instead, they whisper about you when you're not around, twisting your words into weapons, reshaping your image through stories that were never yours to begin with. You begin to notice the shift friends who grow distant without explanation, glances that carry judgment, rooms that fall silent when you enter. The warmth fades not because of what you did, but because of what they've said. And the hardest part is, it wasn't a stranger, it was someone close, someone you trusted. Carl Jung called this projection a psychological defense, where people cast their own insecurities onto others. Instead of facing the discomfort within themselves, they unconsciously disown it and place it onto you. Gossip becomes their coping mechanism. In tearing you down, they feel temporarily elevated. In turning others against you, they avoid turning inward. It's not that they hate you, it's that they can't stand the parts of themselves you reflect back to them, your confidence, your peace, your growth. This is where the spiritual awakening begins. When you recognize that their hostility isn't rooted in truth, but in unhealed wounds, you stop internalizing their words. You begin to see with spiritual eyes their betrayal as a symptom of inner chaos, their cruelty as a cry for control in a life they don't understand. Gossip isn't just careless talk, it's energy discharged from a soul at war with itself. And when you become the target, it's often because your light exposed what they spent years trying to bury. You may feel the urge to defend yourself, to clarify, to correct every misrepresentation. But there is power in silence. There is dignity in not lowering your frequency to match their pain. Each rumor becomes a mirror, not of who you are, but of how deeply they are disconnected from who they are. And as painful as it is, this experience calls you into deeper self-trust. It shows you who is truly for you and who was only comfortable when you were dimmer. Spiritual awakening sharpens your sensitivity to these undercurrents. You begin to feel what is unspoken. You sense when admiration turns into envy, when kindness becomes a performance, when someone's support was never real, it was strategic. Your intuition won't lie to you. It will whisper when their smile feels forced, when their laughter lacks warmth, when their presence drains rather than fills. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But sometimes, it's not your lesson, it's theirs. And your only task is to stay grounded in truth, to not allow someone else's shadow to distort your light, to affirm your worth and celebrate your own growth. No matter who claps for you, comment below, 'My success is sacred.' Let this be your reminder that your light is not dependent on their reaction. Keep rising." Signs. 7. Lack of joy in your success. When someone close to you secretly resents your growth, their response to your success becomes oddly uncomfortable. Instead of genuine excitement, they give you forced smiles, backhanded compliments, or worse, complete indifference. They might say things like, "It's not that big of a deal," or quickly steer the conversation toward their own achievements, as if your moment isn't worth celebrating. These responses are not random. According to spiritual wisdom and Carl Jung's theory of the shadow, what lies beneath is often envy, a mirror reflecting their unresolved frustration with their own unfulfilled potential. Your success shines a light on the parts of themselves they've neglected, ignored, or buried. And instead of letting that light inspire them, it threatens their ego. This reaction isn't just about feeling left behind, it's about being exposed. People who haven't done their inner work often carry an unconscious belief that someone else's win equals their loss. So when you rise, they don't feel awe, they feel attacked. Instead of saying, "You inspire me," they sit with quiet bitterness, masked by fake encouragement or dismissive remarks. What they're really saying is, "Why not me?" But they don't have the courage to admit it. And so, their shadow projects itself outward, subtly trying to bring you down to the level they're stuck in. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that our growth, especially spiritual awakening, can trigger discomfort in those who fear change. Your evolution threatens their comfort zone. The more you elevate, the more it reminds them of the emotional, spiritual, or personal work they've refused to face. They see your joy not as a beacon, but as a challenge. It confronts their stagnation, their missed chances, their unhealed wounds. And instead of taking accountability, they mask their discomfort in small comments meant to pierce your confidence. Their energy becomes passive-aggressive. You notice they only reach out when things go wrong, but when you're doing well, they disappear or seem uninterested. That inconsistency isn't love, it's emotional competition. And Carl Jung reminds us that the people we surround ourselves with are reflections of something within. So if someone can't clap for you when you win, it's not about the event. It's about the emotion it evokes in them. They haven't integrated their shadow. They're not ready to celebrate someone else's light because they're still fighting their own darkness. But don't let this dim your spirit. Their reaction is not a reason to shrink. It's a signal, a lesson in energy awareness. You're not imagining the cold tone or the shifting body language. You're sensing a truth your soul already knows. Not everyone who smiles at you is rooting for you. And not everyone who hears your success will be happy for you. But spiritual wisdom invites us to observe, not absorb. Their silence, their sarcasm, their withdrawal, all of it reveals the inner conflict they haven't addressed. Your spiritual awakening will naturally distance you from those who fear growth. Let it. Do not chase approval from those whose hearts tighten when yours expands. Their reaction speaks volumes not about your worth, but about their wounds. So continue to shine, not to prove them wrong, but to honor the part of you that chose to grow when others stayed stuck. Because your light will always expose the shadows of those who are not yet ready to face their own. Signs 8. Nonverbal cues of hidden hatred. The body always tells the truth, even when words try to hide it. You might hear someone say they're happy for you, but their smile feels forced. Their arms stay crossed, and they never quite look you in the eye. These are not random details. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious always reveals itself, especially through body language. When someone secretly harbors resentment or hatred, they may try to mask it with polite words and surface-level gestures, but their body often betrays what their mouth won't say. Pay close attention to the little things. A shift in tone, a sudden stiffness, or a half-second pause before a smile can all be signs that something deeper is going on. These are called micro-expressions, brief, involuntary reactions that reveal true emotions. They happen so quickly that most people miss them, but your intuition often picks them up, even if your mind doesn't immediately understand why you feel uneasy. Jung taught that this unconscious awareness is part of our natural intelligence. It's not paranoia, it's perception. Think about someone who always responds with sarcasm when you share something meaningful. They might laugh it off, pretending it's all in good fun. But Carl Jung would suggest this is a projection of a hidden part of themselves they haven't faced, surfacing through dismissive or mocking behavior. When people dislike something in you, it's often a reflection of what they suppress in themselves. Their resentment becomes your mirror. In today's world, these dynamics show up everywhere among friends, co-workers, even family. A person might act supportive while quietly rooting for your downfall. It's subtle. They might withhold praise, avoid celebrating your success, or give you advice that subtly undermines your confidence. Their words may be polite, but their tone lacks warmth. Their smile is delayed. Their posture doesn't open. These contradictions are not accidents, they are signs. As Jung emphasized, the shadow always finds a way to leak through. In one story, a woman was promoted at work. Her closest colleague congratulated her warmly, but afterward, their relationship grew cold. Meetings became awkward. Jokes turned into passive aggression. Over time, the hostility that had once been hidden behind friendly gestures became more visible. The truth is, the signs were always there. They were just subtle, buried under layers of social performance. So when someone close to you begins to show these cracks in their behavior, don't ignore them. Watch the energy behind their actions. Listen not only to what they say, but how they say it. The tension in their voice, the shift in their posture, the absence of joy when they speak your name. These are all expressions of a hidden emotional state, signals that their smile may be lying. Carl Jung believed that true spiritual wisdom comes from observing not just the outer world, but the inner dynamics beneath it. The unconscious is always speaking. And if you pay attention to the body, the tone, and the subtle signals, you'll begin to see the truth that was hidden in plain sight. If this truth resonates with you, speak it with clarity. I trust my intuition. I see what's hidden. Drop your comment below to affirm your awareness and encourage others to open their eyes to the unseen. Thank you for taking the time to explore these hidden signs with us. Remember, as Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Awareness is the first step toward protection and healing. If something feels off in a relationship, trust your intuition. It's your soul's way of guiding you toward truth and self-respect. If this video brought you insight or helped you reflect more deeply on the people in your life, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who might need this message, and don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming videos on personal growth, energy awareness, and inner awakening. See you in the next one.